Good evening, my friends. This is the Grim Flayer, and I hope you're doing very well tonight. We are here to talk about the Battle for the Goyfs, our latest Discord tournament, and by we, I mean, of course, myself and my good friend, the Feord, who is both a top 8 competitor and my co-commentator for the pregame. Is that legal? We'll have to check with the judges, but for now, we have to allow it. The Feord, a fan favorite, here with us to talk about No Banlist Modern. That is the theme for the Battle for the Goyfs, and we've got some really good prizes here. Izzet, Feord, I think 2 Future Sight Goyfs from Deathrite Ben. That's the prize, and that's the sponsor. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
Awesome. Good times, good times. And yeah, No Banlist Modern. It's exactly what it sounds like. So as you can see from our title slide here, the Goyfs, they're not very impressed with the old Flayer. I've been decapitated. I've been taken out of the fight. But we have a very stalwart top 8 here. We're going to get into that. But first, Feord, I would like your thoughts as a competitor, as somebody who was involved maybe with some of the organization of the tournament as well. How's it been for you? Has it been fun?
Oh yeah, this tournament's been awesome. I had some hesitations going into it with some of you look at Modern's banned list, right?
Yeah.
a lot of powerful cards on there.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of degenerate strategies you could get into.
True.
But this has been an absolute blast to play, and it's been great tournament. All the lists were so cool. Whole lot of mental missteps.
Yes.
It's been an awesome tournament.
Yeah, Mental Misstep, definitely one of the most played cards, and, talking about some of the banned cards, we look at the depiction here of the background. I'm okay. Nope, I'm casting Oko. Nobody who's casting Oko is really okay, but you gotta do what you gotta do to survive in No Banlist Modern. It's technically a fair card, right? We like fair magic, don't we? So, yeah, well, I'm really happy to hear that. That's my impression from everybody else. They've been having a great time.
I believe Oko's the fairest thing. Sorry, I believe Oko's the fairest thing you can do in No Banlist Modern. Yeah, just about anyway.
Pretty much. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, it's, he's one of a kind. He's one of a kind. But, yeah, we've got some sweet top 8 decks here, and we've got some very talented players. I know firsthand that a lot of these people are very, very good. So our seeds in order. Number 1, Wizard of Lizard playing Golgari Depths. Number 2, KamiNet on Hello, Fellow Humans. Number 3, IreWorks on Jund. Gotta have a Jund up there in the top 8, but I think it might be a blue Jund if we're being honest, but still very much a Jund deck. Number 4, Bobby, Bant, CounterTop. Very cool. Number 5, Manahandler on Izzet Phoenix. Number 6, Nastier on Simic Affinity. I don't know if I've ever seen those 2 words together, to be honest. Number 7, MaybeLotuses Dan on Temur Mistakes. Very amusing. And number 8, that would be you, Feord, on Golgari Depths. So we have Golgari Depths, the only archetype that's duplicated in the top 8. And yeah, I guess we can start there. So is there something overall about the meta that you'd like to talk about that made you choose Depths, or that you think made Depths arguably one of the best positioned deck out there? Or is it just kind of how the cookie crumbled with matchups and variants and so on?
Well, first, I want to say I chose Depths mainly because I could play 0 blue spells, and I think still be able to win.
Respect
so just win through some discard and stuff, some traditional black base interaction.
Yes.
But funny enough, there were only 3 Depths players in the entire tournament.
Okay.
And the third being Lame Boy.
Got it.
So 2 out of 3 made it to the top 8.
Yeah.
So
hey, there you go.
And I gotta say, I think Wizard of Lizard only lost to Bobby, funny enough, and I lost to, funny enough, also lost to Bobby, and then I lost to Dan. But when I lost to Dan, it was only because I couldn't find, I went something like 16 or 17 draws and didn't find a combo piece,
Wow.
which was pretty brutal.
I guess.
But like the deck, like it's just brutal. Like you can get off on the turn too, and it's just. There are very few ways. The format, like you said, very few Path to Exiles out there. Right. Bobby was one of, I want to say, the only 2 or 3 decks running them. And so that's really the main answer to resolve Merit Lage.
Great points all around. That makes a lot of sense. I myself, my one and only rather ill-fated foray into Legacy was playing the Legacy Depths list, a Turbo Depths list, so I'll be interested to get into the nitty-gritty when we start looking at these lists, see what No Banlist Modern has to offer relative to Legacy, and that does make a lot of sense that a deck like Bobby's could police that, and that otherwise you could be pretty well positioned to prey upon this Discord's metagame. And speaking of that, one thing that we should address, because people will probably ask, is that we didn't have anybody register Eldrazi. Now, from the people who have been playing the tournament, I have had mixed messaging. Some say that this tournament, and also the design of 2019, 2020, maybe even early 21, has power crept Eldrazi, not out of the format, I'm sure it'd still be a great deck, but out of the uncontested tier 0 spot that many people think it has. I've heard other people say that Eldrazi is still the best deck, it's just nobody happened to play it. So, any thoughts on that, Feord, before we get into the competitors and their lists in detail?
I do think Eldrazi would be a very powerful deck, but I don't think it would be overpowering compared to 2019-2020 Magic, because as you said earlier, Simic Affinity is not something you ever heard of.
Yeah,
that's just classic Affinity plus Oko and Uro. So,
right. Gotcha.
Yeah, 2020 can hit you in the face real hard. So,
that about sums it up. Cool. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, if you guys anybody watching, if you've got no Banlist Modern experience, please feel free to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But thank you for watching. Thank you so much to Deathrite Ben for organizing the tournament and putting up the most generous prize we've had yet, or maybe joint most generous along with our Battle for the Veil, which is the double Future Sight Tarmogoyf. That's what we're playing for. Let's look at these top 8 in detail. Our first seed is the Wizard of Lizard, who is dead set upon releasing the Kraken, and he says that he chose Golgari Depths as his deck because black and green is his favorite color combination in Magic the Gathering, especially the black-based interaction. Wow! Does he know the way to my heart or what? Very well said. I'm rooting for Wizard of Lizard as of right now. As of reading that, that's amazing. You'll love to hear it. Turbo Depths is also his primary depth in Legacy, and thought it would be fun to try it out in a different format. Hey, you remember that ill-fated Legacy trip that I mentioned? That was... I was put up to that by Wizard of Lizard and Manahandler, 2 Legacy players of our community, and no coincidence, I think, that they both made top 8 here. Anyway, Wizard goes on to say, it is also super fun to make a 2020 Indestructible Flying Kraken avatar. Very true. So, Feord, we are now looking at number 1 seed Golgari Depths, and I'm seeing a lot to like. Any thoughts on this list in particular? Of course, you know how it differs from your own, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about what we need to know here.
I think it looks like a really strong list. I think the key thing you want to pay attention to is the inclusion of Mental Misstep.
Yep.
The inclusion of some counter magic there.
Yes.
And he also has that's the biggest key difference there is he's got counter magic, really, and his sideboard is really strong. Looking at Chalice of the Voids, being able to lock out 1 mana spells, you got a lot of Grave Hate, plus Dark Confidant for those grindier matches. So I think overall this is a really powerful list.
I would say so. Quadruple Force of Vigor is definitely a very confident meta call, I would say, and it makes a lot of sense. And this just shows you what a different beast we're dealing with No Banlist Modern, because you would never, ever see a Modern deck with this type of mana curve, which is all 1s and 2s, basically, playing 3 Chalices of the Void, even in the sideboard. It would just simply never happen, but such is the power of the format that we're playing here. You kind of got to, right?
Funny enough, I do believe the Chalices are for Chalice on 0.
Well, there
I don't know that for certain, but I do believe that was the intent, was to challenge on 0. And interesting note I do want to point out too is the inclusion of 4 Sensei's Divining Tops in board.
Yeah. With
Dark Confidants in the sideboard. I think that's I don't know which one would be best. This is my first foray into basically anything outside of Modern. But in my list, I kind of took the opposite approach. So I think it's interesting to see him go with that move instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Manahandler can be said to be valuing selection over advantage in that way. And, I love to see a lot of these cards. Despite all the power of everything, we've still got Inquisition times 3, Thoughtseize times 4 in the main deck. Into the North, to me, is just a really cool card. We've got 3 Into the North, and there's just so much to like. It is, after all, green-black as well, so hard to argue with that. But yeah, this looks like one of the decks to beat for sure.
And he also has as I say, he's got a solid 4 Abrupt Decay, which has been really big, at least from my experience.
Oh, great!
Not a lot of people have not packed a lot of removal going into this format.
Yeah.
So having access to that's really good. I think that's one of the reasons KamiNet did so well. We'll see him in a minute, but he with the human deck, like he did not have to face a lot of fatal pushes or anything like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, Manahandler's got it all. He's got some discard, got some removal, got some permission, and since he's divining top to either filter it away or dig for it, as the case may be, all alongside one of the most potent combos in this format. So yeah, good times. And yeah, let's take a look. Oh, sorry, you got more?
I was just one more thing too. I just realized he has the Reclaimer. Not only is Elvish Reclaimer obviously in the Legacy version, I think it does a really good job of replacing crop rotation in No Banlist Modern.
Yes.
So obviously you don't have access to a crop rotation.
Right.
But and Into the North only can fetch up Dark Depths. So Elvish can get both halves of the combo.
Yeah, only Dark Depths from among the combo pieces, but it can also get, that's why he's got Snow-Covered Lands here, I presume, as well, right?
Yes, no, I was talking about like the combo pieces. Into the North can only fetch up half your combo.
Yep.
Elvish Reclaimer can fetch up both halves, though.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a really good call from him, too.
I agree, well said. I agree for sure. And it all comes together because without the ability to as consistently turbo out the combo, obviously no Elvish Spirit Guide in Modern, and no Simian Spirit Guide anymore either. Not that would be played here, but still. You interact.
No more 8-man.
No more 8-man. F in the chat. So yeah, good times. Deck is looking great, and let's see what we got next. And our second seed is KamiNet. Very intimidating picture here. Leave it alone, Kami. I don't want any trouble, man. It's cool. It's cool. And what does Kami have to say for himself? What got him into second place? Well, he wanted a deck that taxed the unfair strategies, but allowed for a quick clock where possible. I forgot what Discord I was on, and cannot beat Jund or a resolved Oko. And of course, the things that Kami's talking about here describe the human tribal identity, where you have a lot of hate bear style or tax style effects, but with a much more synergistic in a directly traditionally tribal way, and a quicker clock than, for example, Death and Taxes, which plays some overlapping cards. This is how we know the deck in Modern, and here in No Banlist Modern, it looks pretty different. We've got a lot of the same core. I'm seeing Thalia, of course, Champion, Thalia's Lieutenant, you got the Thalia theme on point, even, acknowledging maybe the presence of opposing fair creature decks, or maybe this is just to beat Merit Lage, or anything in between where the Reflector Mages, but beyond that, we've got a lot of unusual cards from the modern human perspective. Chrome Mox, Gitaxian Probe, that ubiquitous mental misstep, even a couple of Force of Negations, Lavinia, Aethersworn Canonist. My goodness, this is a spicy humans list. Feord, what do you think about it, my friend?
Funny enough, I think a lot of it was we didn't know, like, this was going into a completely unknown meta, right? And I think a lot of his list, like especially the Lavinias and the Aethersworn Canonist, was him looking at all of the ban stuff, like Max Power Storm, right? That No Banlist Modern could produce, all those types of decks. Some of the stuff from Modern's past was all banned, all the combo decks and stuff, and he went, how do I stop this? And then nobody played that.
But nobody really
that
played...
is the story.
But nobody really played enough removal either, so...
Well, everybody expected all of the degenerate combo decks.
Yeah,
Nobody expected humans and Jund.
Right. So, people have got, 3 mental missteps in hand each, and they're, staring each other down while a couple 2-1 humans, walk over the finish line, right? It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the beauty. It just goes to show you that some truisms apply even when the power level is very high. You do something proactive. You put some bodies down, you turn them sideways, it will get you there a non-negligible amount of the time. And I guess that's basically what we're seeing here. But certainly, Kami, you can tell this list is well designed. You can tell he did his research, and there's a lot to like. Thalia Heretic Cathar is an interesting one. I feel like Modern, you let me know what you think about this. I feel like Modern is almost the worst place for her to shine, because in lower powered formats she's more reasonable, but also maybe in higher powered formats she has a higher impact. And, I don't know if that makes any sense, but in other words, I've always kind of liked the card. She never really caught on too hard in Modern, but I'm happy to see her here. I don't know what you think about that, or
I do agree with that. I think she's too low of a power level for regular Modern.
Yep.
But in No Banlist Modern, you saw 2 Dark Depths decks made it to the top 8, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the obviously the Reflector Mages can do some work against the Moderate Lage, but Thalia slows down that combo a considerable amount if it's with the Thespian stage.
Yes.
So I think that was his main. And then even the creature, even the Merit Lage entering tapped, can give him an additional turn to go in to clear for the win. So I think Thalia was a Dark Depths, well, at least Big Thalia was a Dark Depths kind of concession.
Yeah,
and then
think so.
So I do think, funny enough, him with Thalias and the Containment Priests in the sideboard, I think he'd have a really good matchup versus the Dark Depths. I think he'd have a really good matchup versus a lot of other decks. Versus the Dark Depths, versus and the Phoenix deck too, and even Dan's Temur deck. I think he'd have a really good matchup against a lot of those, but
right.
I don't know how well he'd do against something like IreWorks Jund, right?
Yeah, I mean, even when you're looking at a more committed to the board humans deck, it's still like Jund is pretty much licking its lips to play against humans, and then this is a super powered Jund against a humans deck with a lot less beef than we're used to seeing. It's got all these bad top decks basically, but I completely agree with what you said about Kami's many good matchups, and he's got 3 Path to Exile in the side too, so one of maybe the few ways to beat Merit Lage that we're going to see in the format. A lot of the few ways, I should say more clearly, all exist in his deck. So he's definitely able to police one of the big flagship decks of this format.
I believe the only thing he's missing is Archmage's Charm.
There you go. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, not gonna lie. That would be pretty cool. So yeah, awesome stuff, man. And happy to see a tribal deck make it all the way up to second here. Really well designed, and let's see what else we got. And our third seed is IreWorks, who is here with a couple of puppers, and he says, I just really love Jund. Don't we all, my friend? Don't we all? And is this ever a Jund deck? Now, as I mentioned, it does have Oko, it does have Oko, I'm not okay, I'm casting Oko. This applies to IreWorks, it applies to basically anybody trying to play a fair mid-range strategy. I think you just kind of have to do it, and otherwise this is a very nice looking Jund list. I say otherwise. Obviously, Oko is very good in here. But we notably have Deathrite Shaman. We have an Umezawa's Jit main deck, which is definitely really, really cool. And then we have a lot of Jund staples, and I do love to see all of these familiar faces doing so much work in a format like this. And then you see a couple Ancient Grudges in the side, which I think is a really interesting call. Ancient Grudge may be another one of those cards, kind of like Big Thalia, which can be really powerful in a low-powered format, also really powerful in a very high-powered format, and whereas in Modern it's usually not something people reach for so much. But, it is kind of surprising at the end of the day to see how many of these cards are legal in Modern. Any thoughts on this Jund list, Feord?
This is probably my favorite list out of everything that came into it. As a top 8 player myself, this is probably my favorite list. This just looks great. I don't love Oko being in the list, obviously, but I don't think you can play a grindy fair deck and not include Oko if it's in the format. And this checks everything off. You got Bob, you got Tarmogoyf, you got some Bloodbraid Elves.
Yeah.
You got Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah.
And he's going up against Okos and Uros and is it Phoenixes and stuff, and he got third seed. That's really good.
Exactly, and if for no other reason, to your Oko point, then you might run into opposing Okos, and you're just putting yourself at such a disadvantage if you're trying to compete with 1-for-1s and 2-for-1s, and your opponent's doing the same thing, but OP's got an Oko. You gotta, if you can't beat them, you've got to join them, and IreWorks has done that while still flying the Jund flag high. We got 4 copies of Nihil Spellbomb 2. In your experience, is that warranted, or was this maybe a hedge against some decks that were in the tournament, in the meta, but maybe didn't make it to the top 8?
So I think the 4 Nihil Spellbomb is the same reason both myself and Wizard of Lizard ran full play sets of Leyline.
Right.
There's a lot of Hogak, right?
Sure.
Like there's a lot of very powerful graveyard strategies that did not show up. So I think that's where, same thing with Damping Sphere. Funny enough, I think we saw that earlier too in Kami's list.
Yes.
Cloud Post is I don't know if it's Cloud Post specifically, but the Legacy Post deck.
Yeah.
Those lands are legal in No Banlist Modern.
Right.
I think 1 person out of 21 people ran a Post deck.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you had a lot of strategies that could have been really powerful, and that's where I think Eldrazi sits in. I don't think any Eldrazi is as good as Oko, right? But I also don't think it would have just been a pushover of a deck. So that's where I think you have a lot of these sideboards are preparing for decks that just didn't show up.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
Absolutely. And hey, that's magic for you, right? No matter what.
Yeah. That's specifically Jund.
Yeah,
is you tool your deck to be one thing and then you never see it. And you see every other, all the niche strategies out there. It's I didn't know this was a thing.
Exactly.
And then you run into Soul Sisters all of a sudden, what is happening? And then all the lists you prepped for, they're over there playing over there. They're playing against humans over there.
Yeah, exactly. You just look sadly at your Plague Engineers. Although I guess those would be good against Soul Sisters too. But yeah, this is just a Jund list, and we love to see it. Deathrite Shaman, of course, knitting the deck together in so many ways, providing even more graveyard interaction should that be needed. That comes down on turn 1. But we're talking about ramping out Planeswalkers ahead of schedule. We're talking about being a 1-mana Planeswalker, a finisher, a stabilizer, an interactor, you name it. DRS can do it. A couple of duress in the sideboard as well. Definitely just a very, very nice take on an approach to this format that I think a lot of the viewers will be rooting for. So good job, IreWorks. Let's see who is next. And our number 4th seed is Bobby. Look at this. Look at this picture. Bobby, where is this? Is this in a fjord in Norway? You get it? Sounds like your name?
It is in New Zealand.
He's in New Zealand.
He told me.
Well, there you go.
He told me where it was. I told him it looked awesome. It is in New Zealand.
New Zealand has really interesting topography for such a small country. I would love to go one day. But until then, we'll live vicariously.
It is where they filmed. Bobby. It is where they filmed the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yes,
beautiful shots.
Absolutely. I think Bobby's last top 8 appearance had him in front of Bag End, right? Bilbo's house. So maybe that must have been taken in New Zealand too. So Bobby just flexing on us with all the cool pictures. You love to see it. And Bobby chose Bant Counterbalance because he thought it would be a really cool learning experience to play the quote-unquote best control deck Modern could possibly have to offer. The decisions and lines you have to think through and navigate with CounterTop and playing control in such a powerful format really challenged my skills and abilities as a Magic player. I specifically chose Bant over Blue-White, as I preferred having the closing power of Oko to any of the Blue-White win conditions, and Ice Fang is very well positioned against decks such as Depths and Phoenix. Bobby, another one who is not okay because he is casting Oko, but very well said, and I cannot counter-signal any of that. There are massive attractions, obviously, to adding green into your blue-white control deck, as anybody who's not been living under a rock for the last while can tell you. And this deck is just, I love the Depths combo, I love Jund, I love that humans got this far, but as somebody who hasn't really played this format, this is the scariest one to me that I've seen so far in a vacuum. What are your thoughts on this one, Feord?
First, I just want to say I've just realized now, with you saying what you reading through Bobby's text there.
Yeah.
I just realized how close saying Oko sounds to "oh no." I'd never realized that before.
It's true. It's true. There's some hidden messaging in there, believe me.
Continuing on from that statement, no, Bobby's list looks like it almost looks like a legacy deck, right? When you look at it, like this is more in line with the lists I that popped into my head first when I thought No Banlist Modern.
Yes,
it was trying to basically use Jace the Mind Sculptor and Sensei's Divining Top to lock your opponent out of the game with counterbalance and cast miracle cards for their miracle price. And that's what Bobby does, and it works. Yeah. And when it works, like it works. And he takes advantage of the fact, funny enough, that I think his deck would have been a lot worse if there were more post players or Eldrazi players.
Right.
Because his deck abuses the fact that everyone else's mana curve is 1, 2, and 3, and that's it.
Yep.
So he can stack it perfectly. No one can ever cast anything if he gets going. But if you had some Eldrazi players, he wouldn't be able to counter their stuff. And that's where I think it's interesting is our Discord meta. The way that we set up.
Yeah.
I think, don't get me wrong, I think this deck is really good anyway, but I think it props this deck up even more. Like, I think this deck gets even better because it doesn't have to deal with those big mana stuff that you couldn't counter. Everything that's basically happening was within his CMC 1 to 3 range that he can counter, except for, funny enough, hard cast Izzet Phoenix.
Ah, interesting.
That may be the only thing.
Hey, Izzet can pressure the Jace, you know, that is Phoenix rather, that's Arclight Phoenix, that's the one we're going for. Yeah, definitely, and I think that's a really good take overall. And, you know, we saw the grinding power that's like available in a few cases to the Golgari depths list, and we saw the really 2-for-1, 3-for-1, X-for-1 potential of Jund, but frankly, the amount of value generation in this deck, backed up or maybe protected by 7 free counter spells, free to cast counter spells, that is, and then you're talking about accruing further forms of virtual advantage once, as you say, the counterbalance lock gets going, or even just blind counterbalance is going to get him sometime with the matching curves that you mentioned. Again, maybe my mid-range bias, maybe a little PTSD from the Oko and Uro eras of regular Modern, but this deck is scary, man. This deck is real scary.
This deck is really good, and it's like I said. I think humans. I think Kami may be fast enough.
Yeah,
and I think he may be able to slow Bobby down enough with like Thalia's.
Yes.
But I don't know how this. I don't know how Bobby loses to depths. I don't know how he loses to a lot. Like I think he's in a really good place in this top 8 overall.
So
like
far
even against humans, I think he's, and even against like Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Like he has Izzet Phoenix relies on those cantrips and stuff. So it's like I think, and then Bobby has 4 paths. So the only 4 cards that Manahandler has, you got a path for each of them. So I think
exactly.
I think he's in a really good spot for this one.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So based on what we've covered so far, I completely agree. And the sideboard is very, very techy. And I remember really being a big fan of Bobby's list that we saw in 5 Ticks Modern. I thought there were some really interesting innovations there. And here in the sideboard, of this list, I think we're seeing just as many innovations. Everything from Ceremonious Rejection, again, it may be anticipating that Eldrazi matchup being bad that you mentioned, or some of the other big mana strategies. And we've got Surgical, Veil of Summer, Pithing Needle, Celestial Purge, Dovin's Veto, and it goes on and on and on. And remember that he's got so much card advantage and card selection that I think he's really going to be rewarded for a very techy sideboard with the main deck's power level just overall blows me away. I don't really feel that way about the sideboard. The sideboard has a lot of cards that are not as inherently powerful or just more reasonable, but as ways to supplement the main deck, very nice looking to me.
I think the sideboard is basically, I think it's a lot of silver bullets that he put together.
Definitely.
And he has the selection between 2 Jaces and 4 Sensei's Divining Time. He has 8 spells that 8 cantrips on top of that, and plus a full 4 ponders.
Yep.
Like, he has the selection and the card advantage main deck, and then he has a dig, for crying out loud. Dig through time.
Exactly.
Arguably the most powerful card selection spell ever printed in Magic.
Yep.
Like, that thing's insane to me.
It really is.
It blows my mind that was like, people, this is fine. We can just do this. It's like, what?
Exactly. Yeah. Delve was
but
not...
he has the ability to find... Oh, so I was going to say, he has the ability to find like a 1 of Rest in Peace, right?
For sure.
So I don't think it's necessarily bad for him to just play 1. And then it's like,
I
okay,
think,
well, there's a graveyard deck.
Yeah.
There's a good chance he can just find it with all the selection he has.
Exactly.
Same with the Teferi Time Reveler. If, funny enough, I don't think that card's really going to come up in our top 8. But given what could have been, I think that's the same type of thing. I think that was there for the combo strategies. I think that was there for possibly Storm or something. And all of a sudden, or like Control Mirrors.
Yeah,
and
a great one to...
He has a good chance of just finding it with what he's got. So I think his sideboard is geared really well for what he does, for what he has going on.
I agree.
And I think you see the 2 ofs. I think you see the 2 ofs for the bad matchups, like Ceremonious Rejection, like you said, for Eldrazi or Post, and Surgical for like Dredge or Hogak, which are just going to be too quick for him.
Yeah.
So I think he has the 2 ofs for those bad matchups, and then just a host of 1 ofs for decks that are 50-50 or maybe a little favored, and he just wants to squeak it over that line.
I agree completely, and he's got a 1 of Mystic Sanctuary too, which, gets more mileage out of those 1 ofs as well. So, very well designed list. I'm happy that I'm not the one having to fight my way through all of this stuff, and we'll keep an eye on the games here. It looks like we could have games that go a very long time here with Bobby's list, whereas some of the other ones could be over very, very soon. So we'll see how this pans out. I think we could definitely not be surprised to see Bobby going pretty deep in this tournament with a list like this and with the meta as we've laid it out so far.
No, definitely. And funny enough, to your point, I think pretty much every other deck in the top 8 has some sort of quick win condition, even if it's like just Jund with Tarmogoyf, right? Which is, as we all know, Goyf attacks can be quick. They can be thick. Bobby, I believe his only win condition are Okos and Icefang Quaddles. And J-Salt.
In J-Salt, yep.
Yeah, I believe those are his only win conditions. So, whereas, like, IreWorks Jund list can win slower, it can also win really quickly with Bloodbraid Elves and Goyfs. It can go on that classic turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Goyf, turn 3 Liliana, turn 4 Bloodbraid Elf, swing in for 8 type. I can go on that classic path.
Yes.
And you have a lot of the aggro decks. Like, you have Depths. Like, I won a couple games on turn 2 with Golgari Depths. You have Manahandler's Phoenix list. Like that can win games super quick. That's going to explode out of nowhere. Yep. But you have Bobby's deck is the only one that's going to every game. He's going to take it late, and he's going to stop you from winning until Oko can drown you out. I think that's the way he wins.
Absolutely, and just the only other win con I'm seeing is that Monastery Mentor in the side. Talk about spicy 1 of. So yeah, once again, this is a really frightening looking list to me, and good times. Good times here with
Monastery Mentor is the mono white prowess all-star. Monastery Mentor.
It's true. You can't find a better mono white prowess.
The tabletop mono white prowess lists everyone's brewing at home. Kitchen table magic.
Yep.
Goes the full play set of Monastery.
This guy right here. Let the record state. Oh man. All right. What else do we have coming up in round 5 in slot number 5? Okay, our 5th seed is Manahandler, who says, my favorite deck in any format will be blue-based tempo. No Banlist Modern is of course swimming with free disruption, the lifeblood of blue-based tempo, and I believed the Phoenix Threat Package was its best partner in crime for this format. Well said. I like that descriptor, and this is a Phoenix deck. Faithless Looting fans rejoice, because even though it is no longer with us in Modern, hey, maybe one day it will be again, but until then, it is capable of hanging with some of the best in No Banlist Modern, and we see pretty much exactly what I would expect as somebody who A, never played Phoenix in Modern, and B, doesn't really have the No Banlist Modern thorough meta knowledge, right? But we see a lot of the Modern cores that are carrying over, and some extremely potent enablers. We see Mental Misstep, as always, Gitaxian Probe. These are cards that are really, really good in general, and you think about them alongside Arclight, Phoenix, and Thing in the Ice, and it's just a no-brainer that you would play stuff like this. Force of Negation, of course, a lot of cantripping, and 3 copies of Treasure Cruise. So, Feord, you've mentioned this Phoenix deck a few times now. It seems to be kind of at the forefront of your mind. Did this deck really impress you during the Swiss rounds, or is it something that you're hoping to face maybe with depths, or a little bit afraid to face, or what's the deal here?
No, I just really like the list. I think it's the most aggro list probably out of anything that's here that made it to the top 8. Yep. And it's a really solid list. And I've never played Phoenix, but one of my really good friend who I got into Modern with pretty much exclusively played Phoenix back when we started. So I have a lot of games against Phoenix, and that's where. So I have there's a certain spot in my head for Phoenix because of that.
Understandable.
That's where, but no, his list, like, I think it's really cool. It's just the classic Phoenix list. You got Phoenix, you got Thing, you got Faithless Looting, you got some Bolts for removal, Monomorphose, and then all the rest of it, and Thought Scour, of course. Yep. And then everything else was just, hey, let's take whatever's the best thing and slot it in those slots.
Yeah.
So you got no more bad other cantrips are still good, but no more mediocre cantrips, right? Yeah. You have Gitaxian Probe, you got a Ponder, which I don't play blue decks, but from what I've heard, a lot of people say it's the best, one of the, if not the best cantrip that you can play. So you got a whole lot of up power there, and he's got 8 counter spells that are all free in 4 Force and 4 Mental Misstep.
Yeah.
And then Treasure Cruise is just regasses the hand so well. Where I said before, I think Dig Through Time is the best card selection spell ever printed. I think Treasure Cruise is top 3 to 4 probably best card draw spells, especially when it's a deck like this where everything does one thing, right? Yeah. Which is draw more spells until you hit Phoenix and then throw Phoenixes out.
Exactly. Very well said. I agree with all of that. And to your point about Ponder, I'm not a blue mage either. I don't really play older formats, but sometimes you hear these comments where people are like, why are Ponder and Preordain still banned? And I'm like, why are you talking about Ponder and Preordain in the same sentence? Yeah, we're talking about a very, very different card here. I definitely respect the power of Ponder. And yeah, it is so streamlined, as you say. It's doing the thing, and it's doing the Phoenix thing, and everything else. It has so many enablers. And then on the side, you do admittedly have some other win conditions for the inevitable surgical extractions, graveyard hate, other forms of disruption. A couple of Aria of Flame. Very, very interesting reach for those, and Blood Moon can be a win condition, basically, in and of itself. And then Brazen Borrower beats. I've lost to those before. I'm sure there are some decks in here that could lose to that too, although that is not, of course, their primary purpose. But there is so much to like here. Maybe I'm missing something obvious, Feord. What is that breeding pool for? Is this a bluff for Veil of Summer?
So first, I want to point out one thing that does make me worried about playing him is he has Blood Moon. Obviously, as a depths deck, that would just kind of shut me out. With I think I'm only running like 3 basics, so I'm not the most insulated for a moon. But the other thing about his sideboard that I think is great is the Aria of Flames, because with all the cantripping, especially with the Treasure Cruises, and he could theoretically spiral, 5-10 spells together in a turn, like pretty easily. And once you slam an Aria Flame, if he's up against, let's say, like even if half of them are countered, like let's say he's up against Bobby, and any 1 mana spell is countered, like he can spiral out Monomorphoses into Thought Scours, and it's still cast,
exactly.
That's where I think Aria Flame really shines, is in those types of matchups. But To answer your question, I have no idea what one of breeding pool is for. I would not be surprised at all if it was for a Veil of Summer Bluff.
Yeah, I mean, in the comments, you guys can let us know. Maybe we'll have to consult Manahandler directly at some point. Maybe in the top 8 we'll see a use case for breeding pool. Right now, that is my best guess. But you're so right about Arya, and there is something beautiful about the symmetry and how streamlined this deck is. And Arya, it's just like, I think probably I've lost a lot more than I've won to a resolved Arya Flame in Modern, and here things are cranked up to 11. This deck is so consistent. It's very fast too, but to me, consistency is the key word here. And, it puts you on the back foot. It forces you to have the right collection of interactive spells. Just one won't do it in the early game, and then Arya coming down as well. I completely agree with you zeroing in on that. And, the respect for the potential of graveyard strategies continues with ley lines ×4 as well. We've got a couple of Anger of the Gods as well, a good spread of interaction, Grudges, and a Shatterstorm to take care of artifacts. I guess that would be, rather than, the Shatter effects and the Blood Moons would give this deck plus the clock, pretty good game against the big mana too. So I love it.
Yeah, no, I think his sideboard is really good.
Yep.
And you see those ley lines show up again. I want to say like 6 people in the top 8. We're running like a full playsets. Is it 3? Nope. 3 people in the top 8 were running full playsets of ley lines, plus a 4th was running a full playset of spell bombs. Yeah. And it's just because of, you could have decks, you could have had Hogak or Dredge, right? Like, No Banlist Dredge. Yep. I don't even know what that would do. But I don't want to know. That's why I have Leyline. Exactly. Is I just want to go, okay, boom.
I don't care. Leyline, pass. Yeah, exactly. Well, good times, and yeah, it does. I liked the Faithless Looting era of Modern. I think Hogak was a major mistake, had to go, no question. Bridge from Below, maybe, that's not what we're here to talk about, but Faithless Looting itself, I didn't mind the era. I think the card itself, obviously very strong as an enabler, even very strong as a card disadvantage selection spell, but there have been worse offenders in Modern before, and certainly after Faithless Looting, so cool to see Phoenix back in action, especially in this type of format. And number 6 is perennial, basically guaranteed top 8 competitor Nastier. Always seems to make the top 8. He says, I assumed a big part of this tournament would be centered around 1-drops and Misstep. You assumed correctly, my friend, based on what we've seen so far. So I decided to play around it by building a Chalice deck. It quickly came together as an Artifacts Matter deck then. I just threw in Oko and Uro because they are 2 of the most powerful cards ever printed. Fact check, true. They can slot in any deck, also true. You hate to hear it, but you can't argue with it, right? These cards just, if you're even kind of playing their colors, you just probably play them, right? Or at least one of them. In this case, it's both. So this is definitely what it says on the tin. It's Simic Affinity. You've got the Simic Fire cards, and admittedly some other pretty cool Simic cards, like, Emery, I guess, pretty much fits in with Fire design, but in a less egregious way. But then you have an old-fashioned Affinity staple like Thoughtcast, which is pretty cool and right along the plan of this deck, where robots matter and you're also trying to accrue advantage. Force of Negation and Ever-Present, and Metallic Rebuke is definitely some really spicy permission. And then, like he said in the description, this is a deck built around the idea that Chalice of the Void will be very well positioned, and for the same reason that Bobby's Counterbalance setup is, I think that's definitely true here. And then you've got Karn the Great Creator, who is a whole kettle of, well, what am I trying to say? A whole can of worms, a whole kettle of fish. I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's Karn. He's really good, and
he's a whole kettle of fish.
He's a whole kettle of
possibly
worms, a can of fish and kettle of worms.
Yes,
he can tutor your worms and your fish. He's got you covered. And
he can put the bait on, sweet. And he can catch the fish.
That's
all in
right.
one.
There
all
it
in
is.
One card.
All in one. What a guy. What a guy. Get you a man who can do that, right? So yeah, and then we've got more permission in the side, obviously the Karn package as well. not the first time we've seen Ancient Grudge people really respecting artifacts, and that's something Nastier will have to watch out for. We have seen a lot of shatter effects, maybe one or two haymakers like Shatter Storm. So far, we haven't really seen cards like Collector Roof, which is good for him. But yeah, there's a lot going on here, Feord. What is your take?
First, I was just thinking about Ancient Grudge. I was thinking maybe that was tech against IreWorks, right? Because that's an artifact. So that may have been tech against that combo.
That's true.
But not IreWorks. Sorry, not IreWorks the person, but Clawclan. Yeah. Clawclan. I just realized what I said. Clawclan, IreWorks. I can't even remember the card now.
I thought you were making like a super clever. I thought you were making a super clever pun. Oh, let's go with that.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was doing that.
Yeah.
But secondly, and more importantly than my my inability to understand English, is Nastier, I want to say, is the only 3-time top 8er. Because obviously, people like myself, IreWorks, Dan, or MaybeLotuses as he's called, who've played in, if not all 3, at least 2 of them. Like, I've played in all 3. I know IreWorks has, and we only top 8'd twice.
I think
but
that's
you got
correct.
Nastier.
Yeah.
Not only has Nastier top 8'd all 3, he has the same picture all 3.
It's true.
Just what a dominance move. Like, that smile is the smile of a cold-blooded killer. That's what that is.
You're absolutely right. Hey, don't fix what is not broken. Nastier can't be kept out of the top 8, so why change anything, right? It's so true. And if we forgot about somebody who has also top 8 at all 3, forgive us. But I think you're correct. I think Nastier is the only one who's hit all 3. And I mean, he's always got really interesting takes too. This certainly qualifies as that. And you know, we know the power of a lot of these cards, and we see an interesting decision to main deck 2 copies of Tormod's Crypt. Maybe you can kind of afford to do that because all of the fire cards draw you so many cards, and so does Thoughtcast and Karn and all that. But that's definitely.
I think it's that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's that, but I think it's mainly all of the affinity for artifact cards, right? Like improvised cards. I think that's where it mainly comes from.
But you could play
that,
so
many
things in that slot, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at. And the fact that Tormod's Crypt times 2 is in the main deck is to me definitely a sign of corroborating some of the things that you've been saying throughout here.
Yeah, no, it was definitely prep for graveyard decks that really didn't show up that much.
Yep.
I also want to point out what a small tutor package he has. What a small and refined tutor package for Karn.
Yeah.
He has... I really like this, because normally when you see the tutor packages, you have like an E-Tron tutor package, right? For Karn, where it's like 13 or 14 cards, and it's like, when are you going to need these super iffy specific whatever? No, like, he has a really clean, concise tutor package. He's got the liquid metal coating for when he wants to win. Yep. He has the I was about to say Microsoft Lettuce, but the Minkasynth Lattice for when he wants to win late in the game. And he has, Heart of Kuran for when he needs to take something out real quick, just like act as a removal spell almost. He has the EE for when he needs to board wipe, Sorcerer Spyglass for when he needs to eliminate a Planeswalker or something like an Oko. Yep. And then he's good. That's all you need. And I like, and then Ensnaring Bridge, obviously. Forgot the bridge. Of course. That's, Ensnaring Bridge is probably the most important one.
Yeah.
But,
that's implicit, right? Like, can't leave home without it.
Yeah. But that's where, to me, I like his package a lot. Yeah. Like, I like the Karn tutor package he has there in sideboard a lot. And I think it works really well, especially with a lot of the other cards he's got. He's got the Disputes. Like, he's really loaded up to beat the blue metal misstep decks that made the rest of the top 8 effectively, right?
Yeah, he can keep up with their value generation, and he can compete on the stack, and he can do things that might be more busted if they come together quickly before the opponent can answer. And yeah, I think that's well said about Karn. Certainly with a list like this and with all these tools at his disposal, he does not need Karn to win. He does not need to squeeze every possible percentage point out of Karn. No, he can have like a modest, well-designed tutor package, and then you got grudges. You've even got a boil in there. You gotta have a boil here. I think that's definitely a cool card to have floating around. Not that I want any control players to get boiled out. We hate to see that, right? But it could happen. It could happen to you. And
well, I love it so long as he'll type immediately afterwards, welcome to the Junderdome.
Yeah.
Then I will love it.
Absolutely. I think MTGO is just programmed to automatically populate that in your text box. If not, it should be. It should be. So, yeah. Another congratulations on your third straight top 8 Nastier, and congrats on a pretty sweet build. We'll see how it does in the quarterfinals. And here in number 7 is MaybeLotuses, open parentheses, Dan, close parentheses. That is the full title, the full honorific. And as you can see here, Dan was actually the model that they used when they were drawing Oko. So few people know this, but now you know. Very, very cool. This is Dan's day job. He's a model for Magic cards, you know. If only we could all be so lucky. But hey, not only is he a model by day, he's a top 8 competitor by night. And this is what Dan has to say. Several of the cards on the ban list are ostensibly fair, with caveats. Oko, Uro, Deathrite, Renin 6, Astrolabe, Veil of Summer. These are value cards with too many words and too few downsides. I decided to play a pile of these cards that were pushed too far because I was worried that my opponents might play them against me, and I did not want to be outgunned. My deck can struggle to find meaningful interaction, and therefore I am often unable to achieve even a measure of control over the game, which I can now appreciate with the benefit of hindsight. If I could redo deck building all over again, I would play a considerably different deck with more interaction and a more defined game plan. Classic pile problems, right? Too many good cards. I don't know what to do with all my resources. And then sometimes
I'm generating too much value.
Yeah. Oh, there's too many words on the card. I can't think anymore. And, definitely a more linear, a more focused game plan can get one over on a deck like this. But let's be honest, even though that's well written and well said by Dan, I think there's a lot of truth to it. He's also got so much game against so many things with the Temur mistakes. I see a lot of classic cards that have come to define this top 8 as we have seen it thus far. And I also see some spicy one-ofs. Anything that you would like to kick it off focusing on Feord?
So first, I want to highlight the one of Archmage's Charm.
Yep.
And I want to point out what he said about decks with that he can struggle to find meaningful interaction for more linear decks, more quick decks.
Yep.
This man beat me in my first game of Dark Depths to open up this tournament. I turned 3 comboed, and he responded with Archmage's Charm.
Yoink. Wow. I'm surprised that you kept playing.
Oh, I scooped. And when we went to game 2, I don't have an answer to a Resolve Barret Lage.
I would have just said, well, this format is not for me. Maybe I'll just drop. That's about as bad as it gets, but that shows, hey, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? The spicy one-ofs. He's got lots of flexibility here. I see a one-of Cryptic Command that can pull similar tricks, and we see one Dig Through Time, a single Snapcaster Mage, a single Royal Scions. There is just a lot going on here. And then, as we mentioned, we've got the core. 4 Deathrite Shaman, 4 Oko, 3 Uro. Lightning Bolt here with a pretty big presence. That's interesting. What do you make of that? You know, obviously there are other Temur mistakes you could play instead.
I think part of Lightning Bolt was he wanted something that he could have as removal to answer like opposing Renin 6s or creature threats and stuff.
Yep.
But given the amount of popularity Oko specifically had in this tournament, I honestly don't know the effectiveness that Lightning Bolt would have had for him. Right. I think that's kind of where his interaction may have been lacking. If he had, I think almost if he had leaned more into value generation with like some Jaces and some other stupid stuff, then it's like, I think it'd just been too much. I also think it's interesting that he has 3 mental missteps and 1 monoleak. Yeah. I find his counter magic splits very, very intriguing.
That. Well, I wonder if the monoleak is an acknowledgement that, you know, Misstep itself is very popular and maybe he's anticipating more chalices on one. and things of that nature. In general, I think his deck could have a lot of game against some stuff like that, because he is playing a few things that are relatively off the beaten path. Of course, Lightning Bolt doesn't really follow that logic, but there is, I mean, Bolt is Bolt, right? No matter how crazy things get.
I mean, no matter at the end of the day, no matter like how bad Bolt is, it has the floor of being the baseline for any sort of damage, right? Any sort of a damage spell or baseline for power on a creature type deal. So I think I don't think. Look, let me put it this way: I'm not going to hate on him for running 4 bolts. I don't think 4 bolts is the best with how many Okos and Uros and stuff around, but I don't think it's bad. Yeah. I just think that I think also like I'm looking at a little closer now. He's got a one of Dig Through Time, 2 Arcum's Astrolabes, 2 Ice Fang Quaddles. This does almost seem like he wanted to fit every mistake he could
exactly.
in the deck.
It was like a point of pride. And I think that's absolutely right. We see a Field of the Dead there too, talk about mistakes, right? And a Mystic Sanctuary. He really does have it all. And to be clear, a lot of what we're talking about is definitely him following the cues of the Temur color trio. Like, that's just kind of, you know, if you're playing Temur, you have to kind of lean on Lightning Bolt, even in No Banlist Modern.
Yeah, like there's nothing I can think of that's better.
Yeah,
right. Like,
and you could argue that okay, maybe you could play other colors, but if you were thinking Temur, I think this is a really, really good approach. You get rewarded for it in the sideboard when we look at 4 Veil of Summer. That's got to be big game here. This deck can accommodate that very well. We see a lot of other things too, but that's the first thing to talk about. Okay, maybe you have to play a little more Bolt than you'd like, but how about these Veils, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that I also like his Deathrite Shaman, too.
Yeah.
The full set. Mm-hmm. He's got, like you said earlier, just a Planeswalker slapped on a 1-mana creature.
Yep.
Because he can do everything. So that's right. I think, a really good part, too. But Veil of Summer is amazing. I think it should have joined the ban on Monday. I don't know about you.
Oh, you know what I think about that. I could not agree more. Is that a rhetorical question?
I think that it is probably the 3rd or 4th most deserving of the name Mistake in his deck.
And Dan, I think this was this picture of Dan was taken when he hit submit on the 4 Veil of Summer. Because it's just, I know he feels similarly, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I feel I've said that a lot, and it's usually with a green or a green-blue card, funnily enough. But never mind that.
I was gonna say, can you think of a single black card you've ever said that with?
No, the black cards they're all fair. Dark Ritual, fair. Necropotence is fair. They're all fair.
I think Dark Ritual should be reprinted into Modern.
Yeah,
I think we should. I think that would be amazing. Just quick. And Deathrite should be unbanned as well.
For sure, unban Deathrite. Print Dark Ritual in MH2, and then give us a functional reprint in Standard, so we have 8 black Ritual effects. Come on, what are we waiting for? Sounds fair to me. But moving on to Dan's sideboard, the rest of it. Another 4 Leyline. I mentioned we hadn't really seen like a Collector of Stony Silence effect thus far. Dan has one of them. I think that's a smart call. I'm a little surprised to not see more of these, but it's easy for me to say because I'm looking at the top 8, right? I'm not building from the ground up. But I do think that's a good call from Dan. We got Chandra. Big Chandra at 6 mana, breaking the mirror against other fair blue decks. And a Fry is a really cool meta call. There is a lot going on. Grudge, again, popping.
The Chandra would be a house against Bobby's countertop.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, forget about it. And back to the main deck, I'm also seeing...
Like, even if he has Oko going, right? Like, that would be brutal for him.
For sure. I'm also seeing some Triomes in the main deck, so not only do we have really good mana, there's actually a good amount of Renin 6 loop value, and I don't know exactly how realistic it is to take that all the way in this format, but we've got Triomes, we've got a Fiery Islet, Field of the Dead win condition obviously enabled to large degree by Renin 6 too, so there's a lot going on here. Really,
Grim, I believe they're pronounced Tricycle lands.
Pardon me, sir. I will make a note of that for the future. Tricycle lands. nice. Very nice. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, so Temur Mistakes, definitely a very powerful archetype. I could have told you that just by the name. That's just how Modern's been lately. There's just enough old cards to make the new cards have a supporting cast, and it's really powerful. So well done to Dan here. I'm getting in at number 7.
That's one of the funny things is, I was going to say 2019 and 2020 gave the Temur mistake piles their win cons and threats.
Yeah, exactly. Before it's like maybe a lot of good stuff, but ultimately spinning your wheels or maybe having to like play a lot of Jaces to win the game. But now it's like, you got all this stuff. So here you go. Have fun. So yeah, good stuff from Dan. And then we've got somebody, I don't remember who, somebody, they're down in 8th place though. How good could it really be? Let's find out. And rounding out our top 8, that's right, it is my co-host, it is fan favorite, the Feord, here, saying, Dark Depths is a deck that I think is really cool in Legacy, and this was a good chance to play it, and I wanted to play a deck that stayed away from all the busted blue cards and was able to play and win through mainly traditional black-based interaction. You've got the same type of pitch as our number 1 seed. I love you, Golgari Depths players. You guys have the way to my heart. And bonus for the viewers out there, go back to one of our earlier top 8 coverages. This is like one of those find the difference puzzles. Look at Feord's picture here. Look at the old one. See if you can find the difference. And keep an eye on the ones in the future for when he top 8's the next one. But anyway, Feord, we gotta pass it over to you, my friend. Congratulations on the top 8. And obviously we've covered depths already, but what are the differences here and anything else you want to talk about? Take it away.
So first, I want to point out that that my answer, my little paragraph there, what's funny is I was the one who asked everybody else their question of why did you choose the deck you did? I believe I typed this up about 5 minutes before we started.
Oh, beautiful. So basically you just reworked Wizard of Lizard's take. So hey, I respect that. Awesome.
I didn't say I copied his, but yeah, maybe it was some inspiration.
Yeah, maybe a little, yeah. It's an homage. We'll put it that way. You know your audience, hey. Nothing wrong with that.
But so the biggest thing about my deck is originally I actually wanted to do a green-white depths deck.
Ooh.
But I didn't have like any of the cards I needed to do it on MTGO, and I had like 3/4 of the cards I needed to do this. So I did this instead.
That's fair.
Like Dark Depths itself, basically.
Yeah.
So we went with this, and my list is definitely more grindy than Wizard of Lizards, which, funny enough, is just worse. I have determined that is bad in No Banlist Modern, because the game I had, the one game I had, Dark Depths Surgical Extraction out of my deck, relying on Bob to win is not a good win con. Let me tell you something.
Well, you got those Vampire Hexmage beats, too. You got 8/2/1s to deploy. You can get there. You can get there, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
really.
No, I definitely hear you. Definitely hear you there.
I think Turbo Depths, like going full turbo is the way to go. I actually based this deck, funny enough, kind of half on your Legacy League.
Right.
I took that, and I took a top 8 I watched like when I was first getting into Magic, where somebody had won with Dark Depths and he was main decking Dark Confidants, and I was like, that's really cool.
Awesome.
So I want to do that. So I kind of took those and went, how do I keep as many cards as I can? And that's where you get the sad Sajiri Step that I have no way to tutor up.
Well, the idea is good. It's there for intimidation. You just deploy it and you're like...
Rotation is a card in both of those decks,
yeah.
And it is not in mine.
That's hilarious. You're like, but imagine if I did have crop rotation, you'd be in trouble. That's so funny. Hey, you can play it in your first main phase to get protection from like a blocking Arc-like Phoenix. So it's gonna win.
Yes, I can.
It's gonna win you a game, I promise.
I have drawn it. I believe I drew it. I believe once in the Swiss, and it stayed in my hand. Never saw the battlefield.
I believe you. That's really funny. Oh man. So,
but in terms of the deck itself, I figured discard, right? So I think I have 9 main deck discard with another 2 in the sideboard.
Wow, yeah, you do.
And then I have in the 75 8 universal removal spells. in Decay and Trophy.
Yeah. True.
So I wanted to go with all the traditional black-based remove like interaction. Just I'm going to strip your hand. I'm going to kill your permanents. I'm going to refill my hand with Bob until I'm able to land the combo and win.
Yeah.
Which I like to hope is on turn 2, but is rarely the case.
Yeah, but I know you said it's basically worse to be grindy than turbo, but like you said, also we don't have crop rotation. I really think you could get rewarded, and even the more turbo version in seed number 1, it's still got a healthy amount of interaction. So you might have that critical mass to get you over the line in a few crucial spots. But I like your list a lot, man, for sure. And we see the notorious VOS here ×3 in the bottom, which I suppose is a good.
I had to pick them up for this. I didn't have any online.
You had to refuse until
I had to tarnish my sup account. Tarnish the old sup.
The sup account will never be the same, but hey, it happens to all of us sooner or later. I regret to report it's inevitable. So
basically, my first drafts didn't have any Veil of Summer.
Okay,
and then as I was talking to people, I realized how many people were playing Mental Misstep.
Yeah,
and then I started including Veil of Summer.
just casually sneak those in. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
This needs to be included.
Yep. I think 3 decks of 21 did not play it. I think only 3 out of the 21 did not include Mental Misstep. Yeah, that's wild, man.
So that's where it's like,
I think that's a good call.
Considering that, I think I made a good choice with that.
Yeah, no doubt. I also see 2 Pithing Needles in your side. I think that is a good call as well, and I'm also a little surprised at the lack of overall Pithing Needles. I know that there are a couple things like that. We have a Spyglass out of the Karn deck, for example, but I would have thought Pithing Needles would have seen a lot more play than we have seen in this top 8.
Well, so I realized after I started that those are there for Oko.
Yep.
But I did not know that at first. I just saw Pithing Needles in your deck and went, hey, must be good. Should probably run them. I didn't really realize what they were there for until I lost to Dan. And then I realized, those are for Oko.
Yeah, they're for Oko. In Legacy, certainly Wasteland, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're going to definitely want them against the Oko decks, I would have to assume. So,
and as you were saying, I think it's a case of certain decks definitely should have them. I guess I am kind of surprised Wizard of Blizzard doesn't have any, considering everything. Yeah. But I don't know if many of the other decks are decks that want to run Needle, right? I certainly wouldn't think Phoenix wants a Needle nor humans, really, right?
Right, yeah.
So I don't know how many of the other... I guess maybe Jund could have had 1 or 2, but even then, his list is so well built and designed to deal with so many generic threats. I don't know if it's really necessary for him.
I think you're right. It might just be a nature of our, more interactive metagame or, more traditional ports of Modern, whereas if you saw the Eldrazi decks, you saw more big mana decks, more combo decks, those decks might pack Pithing Needle more. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, congrats once again on the top 8, man. Now let's take a quick look at the bracket and make a few predictions before we wrap it on up. Okay, and here's our bracket. We are going to give you a few predictions, or I should say Feord is going to give you the predictions. I'm going to basically agree with him. Unless he says something a little crazy, then maybe I'll push back. But ultimately, I am deferring to his judgment here. And as always in the comments, hey, you can leave your predictions too. So we have the Depths Mirror in the top left, and we have Wizard of Blizzard versus yourself, Feord. And below that, we have Bant CounterTop versus Izzet Phoenix. So what do you think this left side of the bracket is going to look like?
I think Manahandler and I think Bobby is going to be a really close matchup because we were talking about how powerful Bobby's counterbalance lockout can be.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how basically the only 2 decks that I think don't really have to deal with that can get around that are Nastier and Manahandler's Phoenix. So I think that'll be a really close matchup.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I do know they played in the Swiss, and Manahandler won.
Okay.
But with Terminuses and everything like that, like Bobby's really in it. It's going to be really close, and it's going to come down to, can Manahandler get an explosive start? And if he can get a really explosive start, get some Phoenixes attacking by turn 2 to 3, I think he can probably win. But if he's any slower, I don't see him beating Bobby.
Yeah, he's got to get underneath the lock for sure. And
then if he progresses to the semis, either way, I think if Bobby moves on, I think it's like a 90-10 to Bobby against any sort of a depth deck.
Got it.
And then I think Manahandler, I think Phoenix, if he moves on, I think that'll be a really interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be willing to say that I think I'd be a little favored, but I honestly don't know. I never played it, so I have no clue. But I think that'd be a really interesting game.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Have you played a Death's Mirror before?
I have not. So this top one's going to be interesting.
For sure.
Looking at the lists, this is kind of where I was talking to about being more turbo-y.
Yeah.
I don't have a way to beat Resolved Merit Lage in my deck,
Gotcha.
other than resolving one myself.
Sure.
So Wizard of Lizard, I'm a little more grindy. I probably would be a little better against somebody like Dan, who I lost to, funny enough, or like IreWorks.
Sure.
But I think he's better kitted out for the mirror, especially having the mental missteps versus just 4 more discard spells like I do basically.
Sure.
So I think I think he's kitted out a little better for the mirror, but I'm expecting that those games to be over in a flash. Just boom, Merit Lage. Okay, yeah. I scoop. Next turn, boom, Merit Lage. Okay, I scoop. Like just knocking it out like that. So it should be fun no matter what happens.
It should definitely be fun. Definitely some tough breaks for you in the mirror where you might be, as you say, less well kitted out. And then you've got one of your major police opponents, potentially, if you make it through in the semifinals. Definitely this ×2 Tarmogoyf. Remember, it's Goyf ×2. Definitely a big prize. Anything can happen. But I agree with your takes on the left side. Now, on the right side, we have KamiNet on humans versus Temur Mistakes from MaybeLotuses. Parentheses, open parentheses, Dan, closed parentheses. And we have Jund versus Simic Affinity. We have some more slugfest action, basically, on the right side with the humans deck, although it has some beef to it. Clearly the least slugfesty, the least value generating, more of a hate bear style deck with some interesting factors, and this is a tough side of the bracket, I would say, for Kami, just looking at it from the kind of philosophical, broad structural perspective. What do you think about all these matchups on the right?
Yeah, I think they're all a lot closer. Like, I think they're all in the same range of like Bobby Manahandler, where they can go either way.
Okay.
I think Kami definitely has an uphill battle against any 4 of them, but I think, funny enough, Dan is probably his best matchup out of the other 3.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Dan's going to feel rewarded for all those bolts, though, against the human deck, at least.
Yeah, he's going to be rewarded for all the bolt now, but I'm curious about, Kami has a lot of the cheap interaction, a lot of stuff to slow Dan down with the Thalias and stuff.
True.
So I kind of think he could probably get under Dan, like being able to really start outvaluing him.
Yeah. Okay.
But the thing is, I think if Kami proceeds, and that's a big if, because I think that's still a very hard matchup for him. Just looking at it, like I can't speak personally from his list, but I think that one looks like a brutally hard matchup for him.
Agreed.
So just from that forward, like I don't know how he beats IreWorks. Like IreWorks Jund looks like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And then Nastier on the quad Chalice deck against a deck made of nothing but 1 and 2 drops also seems pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
So that
yeah.
That's where I'm looking at it. Like I think Kami definitely has a really hard. Funny enough, unlike the Battle for the Bob, where it was more of a coin flip, I think this one's going to be a really hard matchup, a hard bracket for him to get through.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I think the other ones, I feel like the other 3 could go either way, right? I think IreWorks has the tools to take on Nastier's Affinity list. And I think Nastier, like, if he can get off, like, he's just going to start outvaluing IreWorks if he can get going.
Exactly.
So I honestly think that bracket's going to be really close and really cool to watch, because I think you have those bottom 3 decks, I think could go either way.
Yes.
Like anytime.
No question about it. I agree completely. Well said, man. And I think this is the type of spread of top 8 archetypes where, like, if you had reshuffled these, we would be looking at very different favorites, right? I think every competitor here has a path to the final where they are pretty much favored at every step of the way. But obviously, there's a lot of predators too. So in many ways, this final will be decided by how well they did in the Swiss rounds and then the kind of the luck of the draw as far as what's around them. But I agree with what you said. We've got a slugfest in the bottom right. We've got the humans trying to weather the mistakes in the top right. We've got the Merit Lage mirror match in the top left. And then we've got a basically supercharged Miracles deck versus a supercharged Phoenix deck. What a time to be alive. So that is our top 8, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. This was a long video, but it was a fun one to make. I hope it was fun to listen. I hope you were enjoying the breakdown of all the decks, or maybe if you listen to it as more like a podcast while you're doing something else. Either way, thanks for hanging out with me, the Grimflayer, and with the Feord. Feord, thank you, my friend, for joining me. Any parting words?
Thank you for having me, and thank you for,
of course,
letting us not do this tournament stuff. These has been super fun to be able to take part in and help manage and run this time around. It's been an absolute blast.
Very glad.
And thank you. Also, big thanks. Shout out to Mr. Phoenix Dash. I think it's Phoenix Dash 77. Ben, Deathrite Ben himself.
That's right.
For throwing out the Future Sight Goyfs.
Yeah, a very generous prize. He messaged me with the idea, and I said, that's a great idea, but feel free to only do just one. You know, that's a pretty hefty thing. He's like, no, I want to do 2. So yeah, Ben, a great guy. Shout out to you for sure. And yeah, thanks again, everybody, for watching. We'll see you, obviously, for the top 8 as it comes in. I don't think we said that in the beginning, but I hope it was implied. I hope it was obvious. These matches will be commentated, uploaded to the channel, all the rest. So hang out. Until then, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and we'll see you for the top 8.